application suite in public and civil infrastructure. My name is Bill Thompson, and I will be your host today. We'll start today with an overview of a mass journey by the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, followed by a series of use cases within the aviation, transportation, and higher education facility sector. On the next generation of artificial intelligence and asset management within civil infrastructure led by IBM. We'll wrap up with a Q&A session with our distinguished panel. I'd like to welcome our presentation team this morning. We'll talk a little bit more with each as you come up, but I'd like to welcome Robert Kumaplay from the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, Amy Tatum, Lonnie Trotter, and Olu Light from Starboard Consulting, and Klaus Klint and Thomas Knowles from IBM. I'm kind of a baseball guy, so when I say we have an all-star lineup for the presentation, it's true. We really try to line up the best subject matter experts on these topics being discussed today. Prior to getting started, I'd like to just provide two bits of information. One, the session is being recorded and will be provided to all registrants. A link will be provided following the session. Number two, the most important part, this is a digital workshop and forum. Questions, Q&A is highly encouraged. Our panel is here to share their experiences and their lessons learned, and we want to hear your experiences and lessons learned. We have over 200 individuals registered for this event, representing over 75 public infrastructure agencies, aviation authorities, municipalities. We probably have about 15 different industries. Please bring your questions. There's a panel at the bottom or the team's event page. We will address all questions at the conclusion. And now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker. I'll admit I had one individual in mind to lead us off today. That individual is Mr. Robert Kumaplay. Robert, I'd like to do a little introduction, then I'll hand it over. Robert is the Chief of Enterprise Asset Management at the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. He has more than 35 years of experience in civil engineering design, construction, and asset management. Robert joined the Port Authority in May of 2023 and currently leads the implementation of the agency's Enterprise Asset Management Program. Under his leadership, the EAM program established a governance framework, data and system design specifications, and a myriad of supporting standards. These elements are foundational to improving asset lifecycle management and supporting the agency's operations and maintenance, state of good repairs, and capital planning and renewal activities. Robert currently oversees the ongoing implementation and maintenance of the Port Authority's Enterprise Maximo platform that is scheduled for a 2027 completion, an effort that involves the collaboration of varied stakeholders, including engineering, technology, line businesses, and financial departments. So, Robert, if you would like to take control, share your screen. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
All right. So today I have a lot of material, but I'll try and go through real quick. I'm going to focus on how the Port Authority the Port Authority's computerized maintenance management journey. And as we are transitioning into mass, there are a number of lessons learned. All right. So we'll quickly go over the Port Authority's business and organizational structure, because that fits into the whole conversation, where the PANYNJ is today on the mass journey, and the importance of why asset management, what are some of the challenges that the Port Authority faces, which I'm sure is no different from what you all face, and also the journey and some of the lessons learned. So the Port Authority services about 17 million people in the New York New Jersey region, particularly the New York City. Was established in 1921, has about 5 different line businesses, which will go then about 25 active facilities. It's regulated by several federal agencies, New York, New Jersey, and it is self-sustained. Has about over 8,000 employees and $40 billion for capital project and $8 billion for annual. Just sharing this to give you the scope of the complexity. The Port Authority's mission is driven by some priorities, but fundamentally is just to keep the region moving. And in 2015, the agency decided to focus its operations and management of assets under one umbrella, looking at safety, capital plan, customer experience, operational excellence, sustainability, and being the employer of choice. Not to forget the standards being that they have the 21st century technology. So the Port Authority is set up in a very interesting way, has complex businesses and varied assets. We have air, rail, land, and sea. And the whole idea here is to make sure that everybody is under one umbrella, so everybody calls a pen a pen. So where is the Port Authority today in the IBM walking this complex journey from the legacy systems? I decided to share this so that you can see where we started from the legacy system. And there was an MMIS product, which was mainframe, where we had TB&T Aviation and ports living in there. We also had a few others that were Maximo 7.6 and some in databases. But you can see the first 3, the mainframe was on its last leg. So we had to move that, just carrying everything from that mainframe and pushing it into Maximo 7.6. But going forward, we knew that people defined assets differently, they called the pump differently. So it was very difficult to report agency-wide. So we decided going forward that we would have a agency-wide governed environment that is also supported by standards that all the stakeholders agree in. So when you look here, you'll see the 7.6. We started moving the users and stakeholders from here, driven by an agency-wide design standard. And then, of course, any changes, we are looking at it from the convergence of people, process, and technology. I'll get a little bit more into that. What I want to actually share with you here is that Starboard was very keen, was very paramount on this journey, very helping us walk this complex journey. And so just wanted to share that, but we'll revisit this later. So, but why asset management? I think every agency we want to provide reliable transportation infrastructure system. We want to make sure that we maintain our infrastructure in a state of good repair. And we want to make sure that we are using the right tools and best practices. We also want to make sure that the total life cycle cost is reduced, right? We want to make sure the system is reliable and resilient. Extreme weather. Recently, we had an earthquake here, and the other day also in Baltimore, there was a collision with a bridge that pretty much shut down that port, right? We have to make sure that our infrastructure are able to help us manage these situations. Also, we want to make sure that our data-driven decisions are supported by risk, and also there is transparency and equitability distribution of resources. Of course, support consistent state of good repair, and most importantly, capital planning, and then of course accountability and stewardship, that we are taking care of the assets that we are being assigned to manage. I just shared this slide to show you that you have the same asset here. There is the orange and then there is the green. So the total cost of ownership is the capital plus the green or the capital plus the orange. Depending on how you manage your assets, you can have a lower cost, which is the area under the curve of green, or you have the area under the curve of orange, which is much more than the green. The green also, by the decision taking, can extend the life of the asset, which is longer than the original of Orange. And so the two connections, I just use this as an example on the George Washington Bridge. This is how the suspender ropes are connected to the difference in cost between inspecting the orange versus inspecting the green over the next 100 years is about $35 million. The reason is because with the orange, you have to close the lower level, which is impacting your revenue, and use bucket trucks to go up. With the green, you can just walk on the ledge and inspect those, right? So now you're not closing the roadway and also impacting road users. And all these, with the green, you are going to get a longer life than the orange. So the green is actually the rehabilitation going on now. So this is why asset management is important, because your capital renewal is influenced by the decisions that we make going forward. Public agencies face a lot of challenges. This includes silos, constrained budgets, aging assets, and extreme events. So when you look here, this is from the Congressional Budget Office from 1957 to 1956 to 2017. You can see from 1956 to 71, very intensive capital investment going on. The operations and maintenance was lower, right? Because most of those structures are new. But beyond 76, you can see that operations and maintenance has taken a leap over the capital investment. And that's what public agencies are facing today, right? So now we are actually, everybody on this call is in a good place because we are here because of Maximo, which focuses on operations and maintenance. So there is a lot of work to be done in that area. So in terms of career, was one of the reasons why I chose asset management. The same from the Congressional Budget Office, you can see on the right-hand side that 2015, the gap between the revenue, which is black, and the expenditure, which is red, widens by the time we get to 2025. This poses additional challenge to those of us because we are being asked to do more for less. Not to forget, like I said, recently we had Port Authority has a whole number of buildings and bridges, and we had an earthquake that was 4.8 magnitude. And, that in itself, bringing out to the point of what assets are going to be impacted for a certain level of seismic magnitude, all those conversations. And also recently, Baltimore had a pier that was hit by a particular bridge. And these are the challenges that we face. In order to manage our assets under one umbrella, the Port Authority is 100 years, and for those 100 years through 2016, we've been working in silos. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. We've been able to maintain our assets. We've been operational, but then there's a lot of inefficiencies because the silos, we have varied data needs and acquisition redundancy. The same beacon light on the GWB is the same beacon light on the ports cranes, is the same beacon lights on buildings. And we want to bring all those things together and also make sure that compliance with the regulatory requirements, we are on the same page. To add to that complexity is the fact that you have maintenance and operations, construction, planning, design. If everybody can have access to the same information, then we are more efficient in the things that we do. So the Port Authority journey is a 10-year plan to move us from 2016 to 2027, where we are able to achieve that one common platform. This journey started with the executive giving us a vision, and that was memorialized in a memo where you can see in the green, the executive gave us a buy-in. They outlined a high-level scope, and they were specific about the brand that will support the program, and that was Maximo, part of the reason we are all here. So as a result of that, being part of the team, we came up with a framework and a vision to share with the stakeholders. We want to make sure that we meet the needs of emergency, meet the needs of maintenance and operation, meet the needs of architectural, capital, planning and budget, climate and resiliency, inspection, and public safety. But how can you do that when everybody calls an asset differently? So we put together the stakeholders, as you can see. I want you to pay attention. I have three chiefs that are report to the chief engineer, chief operations officer, and the chief technology officer. Under the chief operations officer is the line department. And I will show you how the line departments are set up. So these are all the line departments with the various facilities. I just want to show you how complex this relationship is. Though we show them as one box, this is what that one box looks like. So how do you get all these people in one line? We have a team and this is actually the permanent employees that you see who are supported by consultants like Starboard, WSP, ACOM. So they support this team of leaders. We have data, information and data senior program manager. We have a program manager for governance. We have a program manager for analytics and operations, and a program manager for implementation and asset investment that is yet to be filled. So we set up a vision. I'm not going to stay on this for long. We looked at what the future will look like and what the past is. We looked at it from people, process, data, and technology. So they'll just take the people, for example, we have silo departmental approaches to achieve the PA objectives. For the future, we are looking for a holistic approach. We want to have personnel with cross-functional skill sets, and then of course staff empowerment, making sure that they are making data-driven decisions. For technology, as is, there are spreadsheets, there are mainframe systems, there are siloed instances of Maximo. We want to have an integrated system. So all these were laid out by the team, and the goals were set of where we want to be, where we are today, and where we want to be. And that was implemented in 4 tracks. Know that policy, governance, and metrics is a task line by itself. Asset management plan is a whole track by itself. Improvements and system implementation, that's where Maximo system implementation tracks are. And on the very right side, which is very limited. Sorry if there's a noise in the background. But you can see the plan was laid out. And as of that plan, this is the implementation. The green are the facilities that have landed today with the number of assets that are in the system. The yellow are the facilities that are in flight, and the gray are the upcoming. And by 2027, we are supposed to end up in 7.6 originally. However, Mars got handed to us. So now you can see that some of the legacy systems which move to 7.6 the databases will be moved to the Maximo Mars, and then some of these end users will go straight into the Mars. I think the advantage that as a leader of the program that we got was we have six entities in the production environment today in 7.6. So part of the strategy is to move that database because of the standards, and everybody is in agreement and everybody is working the same way. We are not moving those 6 individually. We are moving them in bulk. So there's significant savings there, because if each implementation is $2 million, if you move them individually, that's $12 million. If you move them in the production as a whole, you are looking at just $2 million. Again, you can see where the system is in the current production of the 7.6 here. The users have completed 12,000 work orders, and they log in. The last month, the login was about 5,000 logins with 162 unique users. As I said, these all involve management of change. The way we looked at this is you have your data, you have your standards and your protocols, and then you are looking at people, because not every solution is technology. Some solutions are process improvements, some solutions are training and knowledge enhancements, and some solutions are just technology, or just pick up the phone and call the other person, and it doesn't necessarily have to be technology. So this was the framework that we had for management of change. So as you can see, with the requirements management, with all those end users, if everybody has to agree, from operations, capital program, technology, real estate, everybody has to agree that going forward, we are going to call a pen. And the acronym is going to be PEN. And that's how. So we looked at a workflow for that will support the management of requirements. And there were 3 key requirements: the business on the top right here, which where the star is, business requirements, functional requirements, and technical requirements. And today, the Maximo production environment is supported by 900 requirements. This is where we also define for 3,000 asset types, together with the attributes, problem, cause, remedy, useful life. Those were rolled up into 500 classes. You can see at the bottom right here, the teams gathered from the various departments in the middle, gathered together at the table, and we have this not so comfortable conversation. And this took us almost 2 to 3 years to actually create a data standards database where everybody goes to find out about the information that is needed. And each of the information that is in this database is voted on by all the stakeholders. A simple example is where we have the QR code. You can see, you say, where do you put the QR code on this air handling system? And you can go in there in the database and it will tell you exactly where you plan that. So the key deliverables is to have the stakeholders understand the architecture and also the standards of, for example, we have a 5-color scale for all our assets. Before, we had pavements on a 10-color scale, some bridges in New York on a 3-color scale, and others on 5-color scale. But now, if you display that on the GIS platform, you know, it's all over the place. What does the color green mean? So we have standards that control condition assessment, criticality, tagging protocol. All these are voted upon, and then the stakeholders maintain that if there is a change that is needed through our change management process. For the implementation, as I said, Starboard is one of the key implementers. They go through a gate system so that if they take any exception to the location hierarchy different from what the others have already in the production, a discussion is held around that. If they take no exception, then the first 4 gates is good to go. And so as we matured from September 2022 to April 2024, you'll see that a lot of the new folks that come on board, they take no exception to the first 4 gates, and then we move on through the gates and get them into the environment. We currently have about 140,000 assets fully loaded in the system, and there's more coming in, being loaded as we speak. As a result of the governance process, there is also the expectation of what do users get. So I think there is a minimum viable product that is shared, and if anybody wants any additional function, they can go through the change management to achieve that. So what is the benefit of all this? The benefit here is a consistent agent. It helps us with consistent agency-wide reporting, which is currently going on. We have standard classifications, assets, location. Everybody defines them. The units of measure. One team is not measuring in inches and the other in feet. The attribute is the attribute. You have to obey it. We have the data collection exchange templates. We now have templates that people can use, and it can be loaded into the environment. The QA/QC, we have tools. Because we now have one template for the whole agency, we can just develop one QA/QC tool to run when the data is submitted. And also we have a consistent agency risk management that I'll share with you. We are also able to seamlessly integrate. Instead of, for the 6 folks in the production environment, we are able to just do an integration for an IoT and not do it 6 times because it's just one production environment. And of course, if there are productivity improvements, they sit at the table, they have the conversation. So this is the current production environment for the 140,000 assets. By the push of a button, you can see the assets that are in red, the assets that are in orange. This is the current production environment. By the push of a button, this shows up. Like I said, this is this environment. We are trying to replicate that as we are moving into Mass 8. We are moving the 7.6 design standard and preparing a Mass 8 design standard so that we can move the 6 in here while we bring the others here. One big thing that we had for the change management was Our database connects directly into the current 7.6 Maximo platform. So if people are not following the rules, you can see on the right-hand side, there is an X. It's flagged immediately. And so we are able to go back to them to make sure that they are in compliance with the data. Or if somebody said, I don't want to call a pen anymore, we should call it writing instrument. We can come here and tell you how many data points are impacted and whether that is a good decision to go forward with. So that standardization and governance enabled us to build this tool, which makes it more efficient for everyone, because the stakeholders feel like we are listening to them. And there are times that they say, hey, this is going to be too painful. Let's not go down this road right now. We'll do it some other time. So I'm just going to round off with some concluding remarks and lessons learned. I think the journey has not been perfect. It hasn't been smooth, but I can tell you that obtaining that executive vision and buy-in has really helped us, because that is what helped us to bring the people to the table, agree to sit down and vote. It also enabled us to build a team around leaders. You want more strategic people and less tactical people. There is not enough time, but that's a whole different. Those 5 leaders that are there, they are very adaptable. They adapt to change, are very customer oriented. You want to make sure you define a clear vision, objectives, and roadmap with minimum viable products so that it's clear to all the stakeholders. It makes the conversation easier. I live in the New York area. In New York, folks are very assertive. They're just like, who are you to tell me how to do my work? But we're able to have these conversations in a very safe environment. We also want to outline the short-term and long-term needs and deliverables. You don't want to boil the ocean. So you want to tell them what they're going to get in the short term and what your vision is for the long term. And sometimes they could come back and forth. I think they are once they know what it is and the expectations are there, it's easier for everyone to manage. Make sure that the work groups that define this are in-house. Sometimes, consultants come in without understanding clearly the workflows and processes. That's where people, process, and technology comes in. Leverage your in-house staff. They are able to help you. Establish a collaborative, customer-oriented governance. When people feel like you are listening to them, they are also able to cooperate more. Create a collaborative environment. Always make sure you get buy-ins. All our decision-making is voted on by the stakeholders. This is very, very, very painful, but it's very much worth it. The program should be also driven by end-user requirements. That's business, functional, and technical. And also all enterprise solution and deliverables should be strongly founded on coexistence, right? It's not just because one user wants something doesn't mean it can be done if it's going to impact the others. And I think that came in at the tail end, but it has helped with our conversation as we bring convergence to people, process, and technology. That has brought the process. And of course, the importance of business partners who are customer oriented like Starboard has helped us a lot in this journey. Overall, this is what I would say, having currently been the head of the journey and being in this journey since 2016. Don't boil the ocean. All solutions must be scalable. You can finally get there, but get them to use the system. If they've never used the system before, they cannot predict what the future like or what they think they want or what they think they need. By using the system, they could make those decisions. Solutions must be relevant to the end users, and that's why the requirements management is very important, and governance. Solutions must be flexible to meet changing needs, new technology. Now we have AI. We have a whole lot of, make sure that we have efficient data exchange, sharing, interoperability, and also the data is able to accommodate the varied regulatory requirements, like as I gave the example of the beacon light, that is both at TB&T, ports, world trade, and aviation, right? It's important that everybody feels like they are being heard and everybody's paying. Solutions must meet business needs and timely. And finally, if you build all these standards and there's no compliance, then it's not going to work. That's why the tool to manage this is really very powerful for us. I think that's where I will stop. Thank you so much for really the time to share this experience, and we'll hand over back to Bill at this time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Robert. That was perfect. That was great. I'm going to go over and share our presentation. In a moment, Robert, we have a number of questions that we will get to in a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to present this over and take this over to our Starboard team. Amy, do you have control? So, all right, just give me a moment. Just need to get to our slide. Amy, do you want to introduce while I'm fuddling around here? Amy, you're on mute.
I am. Sorry, hit that button. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amy Tatum with Starboard Consulting. And some of you, I recognize names, and many people know me as the webinar lady. So I am glad to be back and talk with you a little bit. Thank you, Robert, for all the great information that you shared. It has been definitely quite a journey. And you're not there yet, but you're definitely well down the path and making progress. So we're excited to see that. And it was kind of fun to see the picture that you shared a little bit, because I recognized the back of my head in that room full of people. So it was exciting for Starboard to have a seat at that table.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us walk this journey as well.
Absolutely. And the comments on people, process, data, technology, those are key cornerstones of any implementation. You can't do one without the other, or something's not going to go as expected.
I'm sorry, I'm having some difficulty getting to, oh, here we go.
So I think next we were going to talk about just a couple of case studies of some things that we've seen on the Starboard team. I've been working with Maximo for over 25 years now, a lot of that time in public infrastructure types of organizations, a lot of utilities, some airports, higher education, city, county governments. So there's a lot of commonality across those industries and some of the things that we see. So Lonnie and I are going to give you just a couple of quick use cases, some challenges that we've seen in doing that. So I'm going to start with aviation specifically. And on this one, it's really looking at an airport. They generally operate like small cities. So there's a lot of common threads between the city and county government work that we do and the aviation work that we do. As an airport, you're going to have a lot of buildings and grounds. There's roadways, runways, utilities. A lot of airports have their own police and fire. There's certainly security considerations. One of the unique things I think about airports and really any public-facing infrastructure is the fact that you have that public exposure. And it doesn't really matter who owns the building or the bridge or the road or who's operating and maintaining it. The fact that it's tied to your organization puts you on the front line of a lot of public exposure. And with social media being what it is today, just the slightest thing goes out on Instagram or Twitter or any of the other apps that I don't even know what they all are anymore, and becomes viral within moments. So there's also a lot of regulations involved, and some of those regulatory agencies can come with some pretty severe financial penalties or reputational damage. Another thing we've seen as a trend in the industry is, way back in the day, there were large government agencies that were responsible for the building and operating and maintaining of these facilities. So There are federal programs in place. There were designs and builds that were done. That pendulum has swung kind of all the way to the other side now, where there's a lot of DBOM contracts where you're hiring folks to go out and design, build, operate, and maintain your facility, but it's still your facility, which means that public perception of something going wrong is all your fault. Doesn't really matter who's got the maintenance and operation contract. It's still yours. So there's a challenge with that around customer satisfaction. How do you manage and measure asset health and performance and total cost of ownership across a diverse set of assets that you may or may not actually operate and maintain? And then maintaining data quality, particularly if you've got contracted maintenance where that contract might turn over every 3 or 5 years. We've seen situations with some of our airport clients where every time that contract turned over, all of the data, all the maintenance history, all of the asset details that contractor A had been keeping up with for the last 3 or 5 years went away, and contractor B came in and basically started all over. And that's expensive. It's expensive for the contractors, which is going to be reflected in their bid prices. It's expensive for the agency in that as they're looking at any sort of longer term capital planning, repair, replace type things, anything like that, they just don't have that history. So I think, Robert, really the work that's been done at the Port Authority has set a high standard for establishing standards that apply to all of the operators and maintainers. I think having Maximo in that, I'll call it kind of multi-tenant style application, even though it's not really multi-tenant, is important to set those standards up and manage them, but leave some flexibility for people to be able to do their jobs. Because if you don't allow for some tailoring, you don't allow for the fact that they are very different user groups and diverse assets and people and things like that, one size fits all approach isn't going to work. So we've seen situations where different line departments or city departments or business organizations within the larger whole might have their own cloned versions of applications, or they might have some slightly different business rules, sticking within those enterprise standards so that all of your reporting and roll-ups and things like that are well managed, but yet you're giving people the freedom to do their work the way they need to do it, which helps your user adoption. And user adoption is really the key to quality data, because if people don't see the need and want to use the system, they're not going to. And in that case, then you're going to lose some of that rich data and information that you could be gathering. So the results of that we've seen, having improved data access across a single system is key. In doing that, regardless of the maintenance responsibility. So we've got a lot of our clients that have opened Maximo up to their contractors, where if you've got a contract maintenance, in the case of aviation, it's pretty common for bag handling equipment. It's common for the gate equipment, fleet vehicles, all the buses and transportation that's around, any sort of train systems, people movers, elevators, all of those kinds of things are often maintained by contractors. But pulling those into your single system of record for all your assets gives you some assurance that the data is there, the assets are being maintained properly, and if there is a change in maintenance responsibility for any reason, that's captured. We've also seen some situations where there's different maintenance agreement even inside the buildings, and this could apply to terminal buildings, it could apply to college campuses, it can apply to office buildings, anything. Sometimes tenants have some responsibility for their own maintenance, but yet you have some shared responsibility there as well. So getting that all into a single system of record and being able to report and measure health and performance consistently based on common standards is really the outcome that we're looking for there and that we've been able to achieve. And again, then user adoption is key by giving people the freedom that they need to manage their unique processes and requirements, but keeping that within that framework. So this is just one of the sets of challenges and results that we've seen with some aviation clients that we've worked with, and these are very, very similar with some city and county governments and others as well. So pretty much anywhere you've got public facing infrastructure and you've got situations of contracted maintenance of varying forms coming together. That's always a challenge to pull that into one consolidated and enterprise level system that is used by all. So with that, I think we're going to move on to the next use case. And I think Olu was originally going to present this one, but I'm not sure he was able to join us today. So Lonnie, I think you and I are going to kind of jump in here together. You want to introduce
Sure.
yourself real quick, and then we'll talk about transportation?
Absolutely. So my name's Lonnie Trotter. Again, been on the Starboard webinars several times. Been with the company about 12 years, working with Maximo for about 17. And in our experience here, one of the other sectors that we have encountered and have similar challenges with enterprise asset management, and especially on the public facing side, is in the area of transportation. And the use case that we want to talk about today is one around a public transportation organization that had a huge customer participation with 24-hour operations. Things were constantly moving, highly visible around the public and government and the local community in a very large metroplex area. Challenges that you see there, again, back to the public facing, back to the days of social media, complaints by passengers and the like were very visible, and the satisfaction level had become low around operational outages, breakdowns, things of that nature. Some of the ability to even get to the transportation platforms and all had some, just some mechanical and, quite frankly, asset management deterioration in the organization. So the approach there was to take a look at, what is it that is being maintained and how. The idea there was that, good old preventive maintenance plans and schedules, good old job plans and step-by-step things that had been in place for a while, had not been reviewed for a long time. The analysis of, how often are we preventing failures versus just reacting to them, which is the goal of asset management, is to reduce that to a 20% of reactive, and 80% of the time we're preventing or maintaining. So the idea was to take a look at that, redo it, and provide. One of the other things was response times to repairs was there was a that it just took a long time. Once something was reported and then run through the various administrative actions, the work actually didn't begin for a while. So there was just sort of those three things, right? The flipping of the maintenance schedules and the ability to flip to a more preventive mode, and the increase of response times was the actual goals of the challenge. At the end of the day, a lot of changes were made. The schedules were reviewed and changed. They were able to schedule work on off-peak times, using and mobile solution actually played a big part in that, in the ability to document that work and provide work that's coming in on an emergent basis. Materials management increases, having those materials ready when the work needed to be done was another huge lift. And all of these things Maximo is doing, right? Natively born and bred to do, provide this information to allow you to make these agile adjustments, to give you pretty much instant feedback on what is needed to be done. And then the downtime of the assets, the outages, the impact on the customers and all was improved. So that this was a Amy, I don't know, do you have any more points you want to make on those?
Yeah, I was going to jump in a little bit. I think this is a great example of the importance of in some cases, going back to the basics. As we all look at the move to mass and picking up things like, monitor and health and predict, and those things are all great, and they'll add to the capabilities in your asset management journey. But, all of this work here was a great success story, and it was all done in 7.6. So this wasn't really a mass implementation, I don't think. And so just, making sure that your foundation is strong before you start looking at more advanced technologies and AI and things like that. So I think that idea of going back to looking at job plans and looking at PMs and understanding what you're doing and improving that ratio, and then using that as the starting point to then look at health and predict and other features within the application suite, is really important. There's a tendency sometimes to look at the shiny new stuff, and we've all got to remember that we've got to keep the core foundation strong as well. So
Absolutely. So you see a lot of parallels between the different sectors have similar challenges. And I think we're going to move on now to the next use case that's around public higher education. Again, we have a public facing business with large campuses. Basically, these universities have multiple sites. They operate like a metroplex, with all the various services and challenges of a little city. Back to the the basic things that a city or a operating campus is dependent on. Buildings and grounds. You've got on a university campus, you've got residents. Your customers and residents are living on campus. You've got a complex scientific facilities. And your own utilities. There are utilities that in this use case that we're talking about, the university had their own 5 independent utilities, from electric to gas to water to chilled water to a heating plant. Those are individually, Maximo use cases, each one in itself. But all the way through food services, and of course, constantly renovating and construction that is needed in an education facility. So our challenges that we tackled in this particular use case was something very, very basic. This was a challenge where this organization needed a way, and I guess a lot of organizations need ways to track who has what keys to what building and what room. And you can imagine the thousands of keys that were probably created and issued over the years. This was one of the challenges presented to us. We were able to create, we'll talk about the solution here, but the other challenges that they had was, the ability to comply with environmental regulations around the refrigerant chemicals that they were handling and using. That became a pretty high priority. And Maximo was, the fit for tracking this. And then the utilities were really just building their use of Maximo up and becoming adopters, sort of late adopters, actually, in this particular case. And we started with some foundational work with them. They needed to really just document their layout, their plants, their distribution, all their hierarchies, and set up some failure reporting for poising themselves for good asset and work management in the future. So what did we do? So Starboard was able to create a solution. We actually ended up tracking, speaking of what's a definition of an asset, tracking keys as assets in Maximo. And this became just an amazing solution for them to track. Every time a key is made, it becomes an asset. That asset gets issued to an individual, and at any given time, the Maximo can provide you with what keys a particular person has been issued. And this came into play because there was a need at one point for a controversial firing of an employee, and that immediately needed to secure the facilities that employee had access to. So, a quick query in Maximo gave you all the buildings, rooms, and access that person had, and they could easily be issued work orders to go rekey those facilities. So on the refrigerant tracking front, created a pretty creative solution for managing the refrigerant as in inventory, tracking usage, and reporting and being able to produce reports for the onboarding and the issuance of refrigerant, and then therefore any kind of losses that would need to be reported to the environmental authorities. And then for the utilities, again, we just went back to the basics on, developed a location name, help them develop a location naming standard and hierarchy with multiple systems in the Maximo locations environment, so they would be nice, cozy homes for when they load their assets in. So that was kind of three different little use cases for a large university that we were able to help with. And so now they have, the best of asset management at their fingertips with Maximo, right? And this is also done in a 7.6 environment. So, one of the overarching messages with the mass migration to the new platform is that you still get Maximo, right? Maximo is still there. It has all the pieces and parts that you've been using for years and years. And in addition to the monitor, predict, health kind of options that utilize the rich data that you're collecting, in your Maximo/manage environment. So this was just kind of another way of looking at civil infrastructure as a public facing. It's not always a huge engineering kind of a situation. It's sometimes just basic things that we all encounter every day, and Maximo's there, has the tool sets to help support all that. And Bill, I think it's over to you now.
Yes, thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for those use studies, and thank you for covering for the transportation. And we'll go back. We have, I just want to mention, we've had an outstanding response for Q&A that we'll continue to monitor, and we will have the panel ready to discuss those at the conclusion. And I have the distinct pleasure now to welcome Mr. Klaus Klint, Principal Worldwide Industry Sales Leader for IBM. He's next up on our agenda. We've had some connection issues, so I might be driving this, but I want to hand this over to Klaus. And Klaus, I'm happy to drive your deck if you just want me to let me know when you want me to.
So thank you. So I think I can take the control here. So let me just see. So thanks for having me. It's a bit unusual for me because I couldn't access by the computer, so I'm here by the phone. And as you can see, it's a bit handheld, but I have the camera on. So pleasure to be here. My name is Klaus Klint. I'm the Worldwide Industry Sales Leader for Civil Infrastructure. As you can see in the background, you might be able to see I'm sitting in an office, the IBM office, but that's in Copenhagen. So you might ask, why do a person from Denmark have a worldwide role within civil infrastructure? And that's because we have done the Maximo Civil Infrastructure Industry product based on innovation that we did in Europe. And that's why I was assigned to this task, because I had the pleasure of working with the first client where we have taken the assets and put it into the product. So the presentation is called Next Generation AI and Asset Management for Civil Infrastructure.
And that shows, so we had in the previous presentations, there's been quite a lot on what we call Maximo Manage, the foundation for this. But I'll inspire you on the investments that IBM have put into building the capabilities that works on top of the Maximo Manage in order to integrate IoT data, in order to use image AI on images, to be able to take a more data-driven approach to handle asset management and civil infrastructure. And let me just start by, when we say civil infrastructure at IBM, we define it as operator, maintainers, owners of bridges, roads, rail, ports, airports, and transit. And that doesn't mean what I'm going to present if you work in utilities or you work with buildings, as has been previously presented, that this is not relevant, because this is really giving you use cases that's specifically around bridges, but it can apply to any assets that you maintain. And as you can see here, the American Society of Civil Engineers, every 4th year, they do an assessment of the infrastructure in US. The last one was in 2021. And as you can see here, this is the grading that they gave. So it's C for bridges, D for roads, B for rail, D minus for B minus for ports, and D for transit. So it's really not really grades you would like to have if you're still working in college. And what when this was announced, I was on a call with Pete Buttigieg, and he stated, well, in US, you haven't really done anything with the infrastructure on a large scale since Eisenhower was president. And that's some years ago, at least it was not in my time. And that calls both for, of course, investments, which you have, or the government has released in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, but also to do intelligent asset management to be able to optimize the way that you use your resources on inspection, operation, and maintenance of the infrastructure. And just a stat, this is an industry with a staggering size. So just on manual inspection of bridges alone, they spent more than $50 billion every year. So that's engineers going to a bridge with a checklist, doing the manual inspection, and come up with a grading. Now imagine if you could digitize that, you could use drone or camera technology, being able to map that into a digital twin, and then see that not only the development or not only the categorization of defects, but also the development of defects over time. So this is one of the things that we have invested a lot in, building that capabilities, so you can take the asset management to a different level based on the condition of the assets that you're maintaining. Just a few stats on the infrastructure industry. So there's more than $2.2 trillion backlog on more than 1 million structures globally. And then there was the US Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. $1.2 trillion was released. Half of it was for what's within this definition of civil infrastructure. And trillion, that's quite a lot. So I put in all the zeros. So that's quite a lot of money that will what will flow to operators of civil infrastructure. But it's also needed. So in US alone, 178 million trips are taken over structural deficient bridges every year. So, or every day, sorry. So that shows that there's a clear and present risk of accidents. And then for 40% of all roads in US are in poor and mediocre condition. So obviously that calls for a solution that can address the challenges that operators of civil infrastructure have. And of course, what keeps all of you awake that have are maintaining assets is you want to minimize the risk of failure. In civil infrastructure, it can have fatal consequences if, for instance, a bridge collapse or other things happen to the infrastructure. So to minimize that is very important. The other thing is that all operators are looking into that the maintenance costs are rising. So looking for tools to improve productivity. And then, of course, if you can extend the expected lifetime of the structures, it will also improve sustainability because you don't have to build new infrastructure to replace the old one. And then, obviously, this is a regulated industry, so it needs to stay compliant with the law, rules, and regulations. And that's why we have built the Maximo Civil Infrastructure Industry Solution, and it works on top of the Maximo application suite. So it leverages all the components of the application suite. Now, there's been a lot of presentation on the managed part, so I'll not go that much into that in this presentation, but I can only echo what both Robert and the Starboard team said, that it's very important to have the foundation and the data quality in place regarding your assets in the Maximo Manage. Once you have that, we have the capabilities of integrating to sensors, IoT sensors, collect data from the infrastructure through the monitor product. We are able to analyze images with visual inspection, and I'll get back to that. We're quite advanced in the use of that. Then we have done integration to the Maximo mobile solution. So the solutions are actually built regarding inspection and defect management are built into the Maximo mobile. And then obviously when you have all the data regarding the assets, you're able to do the health score of the assets and then also build the predictive models on when an asset is going to fail. The best way to describe it is by going through a use case. So I'll talk about the client I've been working with in Denmark for since they started their journey. But before that, I'll just say, so you can be confident that IBM will continue in investing in both the Maximo portfolio, but Maximo application suite, but also the civil infrastructure industries product. This picture shows two gentlemen. That one is our global CEO, Arvind Krishna, and it's Tom Rosamilia, who at that point in time was our number one within the software business. And Maximo Civil Infrastructure got the Chairman's Environmental Award late 2022 because of the ability to help clients to extend the expected lifetime of the structures. And then by doing that, have a significant impact on the CO2 footprint that that will be avoided by extending the expected lifetime. So let me be more specific on what this is. So this was a lot of nice words regarding the Maximo application suite and the capabilities of the industry solution. But how does this work real life? And I'll use the example of a bridge in Denmark. It's the third largest suspension bridge connecting two parts of Denmark. You can see the picture here. It's taken from the top of the pylons. That's the highest point in Denmark. That's 254 meters above the sea level. I believe it's like 733 feet below above sea level. So it's a pretty big structure. You can see it's carried by the cables. You can see within the cables on the side where the two gentlemen are walking, there's 17,000 steel wires carrying the bridge. So if you put that on one long line, it goes around the world more than 5 times. And it's a suspension bridge, so it's carried by 2 anchor blocks, and just one of them weighs 320,000 tons. It's the same weight as the entire population in Denmark, and there's 5.8 million inhabitants in Denmark. So you can imagine that both inspection, maintenance are pretty difficult to do for infrastructure like this. And that's where digitalization comes in, and the power of Maximo Application Suite. The reason they started was because they got a new CEO, and he was asking the team, and that's a question that I guess all of you will have problems answering: are we over or under maintaining our infrastructure? And they couldn't really come up with the answer. They had all the good plans, calendar-based inspection and maintenance, but they couldn't really answer the question. And then they came up with, why don't we connect to the infrastructure and base our decisions based on data and the condition of the assets? And overall, they then did a ambition of reducing the operation cost with 2% year over year. And they started in 2017. And now 2% year over year might not sound a lot, but it is in fact, they spend $75 million every year maintaining the bridge. So 2% year over year until 2025 actually gives productivity increase and savings on more than $50 million. So quite impressive, and that's the only infrastructure operator I've heard of who have been able to improve productivity. Normally looking into increased operation and maintenance cost by about 2% every year. But getting to know the infrastructure more in details and the condition, they were also able to increase the expected lifetime of the bridge. So it was built and dimensioned to last 100 years. It opened in 1998. So now with this, they have been able to double that. So the expected lifetime of the bridge is 200 years. And that's quite impressive when you also look at the way they have been able to increase productivity. So how did they go about with this? Well, first of all, they said, well, in order to get knowledge of our infrastructure and being able to do predictive maintenance, we really need to connect to our infrastructure to get information. We need to be able to monitor, act upon it, and then build the predictive models. So that was their mindset they had. And this slide is their own slide. So it's a bit maybe not that fancy in the way it's done, but where they spent most of the effort the first 2 years was really to build the foundation that was also described in the earlier presentation, to put everything up with the location-based hierarchies in Maximo civil infrastructure. And then they are connecting data from outside sources like sensors, like images, and like the other important things that they use, like 3D BIM models and drawings. So let me just go into what we're doing specifically on visual inspection, and that applies to several use cases. We're also doing this in the rail industry, and if any of you have other use cases, do not hesitate to reach out to Starboard or myself in order to investigate how this can be done. But this is one of the best use cases, in my view, on the use of artificial intelligence. So the way they did inspections, I talked a bit about the infrastructure that they had with the pylons, the anchor blocks, and the piers. So the way they did that previously was really with special equipment, and very costly, very also dangerous, and not really very precise. So the pylons, for instance, it was a engineer that at the same time was a mountaineer who were able to, were rappelling the pylons and then doing the observations. So I don't know about you, but if I was in 700 feet height and going to do the categorization of the different kind of defects, I'll have a hard time being precise doing that. Furthermore, if I was going back to the bridge 6 months after, it would really be very difficult to remember what I saw last time. So I'll just roll a video that shows how we're doing this today. So in my view, this is one of the best AI cases, not only in civil infrastructure, but in general, because it's so obvious that that it's more precise results, it's less dangerous, and it's really good from a productivity point of view, and it makes a lot of sense to use technology to solve this this challenge. So the way we have built it a bit behind the scenes, so we're using the Maximo visual inspection application, but we've built something on top specifically for this use case. So what we're able to do is build a digital twin, a digital representation of the physical bridge. And then AI within Maximo civil infrastructure is able to categorize the different kind of defects on the concrete surfaces. So there's 4 main categories of defects: rust, algae, spallings, and cracks. And the advantage of having a digital twin is that not only can you see the damages or defects, but over time you are able to see the development of the defects. So a crack is not necessarily a problem for concrete surfaces, but if it becomes larger, you might want to take some action on it. And this is very powerful. What we also learned is that the AI is very, very good at identifying very small defects as well, that you can barely see with the human eye. So you get a much more data-driven approach of deciding whether to do something about the defects or leave them. And what we have built is really not only the image AI, but we have built the whole workflow process on defect management within Maximo. So this is some things that our developers have built that will give you the ability to handle defects. And as I said, it's integrated with Maximo Mobile. So all these things is part of the product, and will make you able to do defect management in a total different way than you have been able to do previously or without using these tools. We are also doing specific things that is regarding possession management, how you do closures and are able to do all across all asset classes. There's a functionality once you close a piece of road or piece of rail, you're able to oh, I lost the presentation here. You're able to.
I'll put it right back to where you were. I'll put you back on. I'm just moving it up to that screen.
Okay,
slide.
but then you're able to do, when you do a closure, for instance, a rail track, you're able to do all the maintenance and that needs to be done within that area. So that's of course very powerful, as opposed to having each of the asset management owners doing the possessions, and then you're not optimizing the accessibility of the infrastructure.
Want to take control again?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. And lastly, they also have a structural health monitoring system. So there's a lot of sensors of the bridge. So this is with the within the Maximo, that they can see the status and structural health monitoring dashboard that gives them the ability to, first of all, see if there's any things they need to be aware of right now, but also to see if there's some things that is not working. And an example is that they were not happy with the or they were afraid of the hangers. They are very heavy. They're like 50 tons, and they were vibrating too much. Based on this, they were able to see that, and they put in reinforcement on that part of the infrastructure. With that said, just to wrap up. So here we have an example of how they have used the Maximo technology to improve productivity significantly over an 8-year period, and also how they have been able to increase the expected lifetime of the structures. So a very impressive achievement, and we're very happy that this client is also very open to share their experience. So if any of you want to hear their experience from their own side, they are open to have the conversation with you. And then I just want to wrap up with the let me just see here. I had another example, but we are running a bit late here, but because this is just one bridge, but we are also examples of organization maintaining a much larger part of the infrastructure. So the one from Italy is handling more than 4,000 bridges. So it's a technology that scales. And if you look around the world, I mean, we had Robert on for Port Authority, New York, New Jersey, but across the world, we have many civil infrastructure operators that are already building their asset management on Maximo. So we're looking forward to both work with you and, of course, them to take the asset management and AI to the next level by leveraging the Maximo application suite. So with that, I'll just hand over to the question and answer session.
Thank you, Klaus.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much for the presentation and your thoughts on that. And Robert, welcome back. It is, when we've been monitoring, there's been some responses to the questions and answers, and I think we'll take some of that now. I can start, Amy, if I don't know if you want to, Lonnie, you want to run through some of these, but I was going to start at the top. I think there was some, Robert, you might have seen these, but I think some of these were based, Robert, on your session. And I'll just start with number one. Are divisions on a single site or multi-site in Maximo 7.6? And what does the database represent in slide number 41? I don't know if that's, if we need to go back to that.
Let me see. Give me a second here.
I don't remember what slide 41 was. maybe Robert, while you look at that, I'll
Yeah,
answer
I'm
on the
going to pull.
multi-site thing.
Mhm.
So right now with the Port Authority, each of the line departments is set up as an organization in Maximo, and then there's an additional organization that covers a lot of the service lines, I'll call them. So the folks that span multiple line departments with the radio and communication equipment, some of the automotive division, places like that. And then within each of the sites or within each of the organizations, there's multiple sites right now. So aviation as a line department is an organization. Sites within that are the JFK, Newark, and LaGuardia Airport. Tunnels and Bridges is an organization. Within that, you've got the Holland and Lincoln tunnels and the Staten Island and George Washington bridges. So it's pretty set up. Each of those, I'll say, kind of legacy systems is basically an org, and then there's sites within those. We do are considering that and some potential changes with that, mainly with the what we're calling coexistence, in that there's a lot of movement of people and sometimes assets across those, which having that segregation can create some challenges there. Robert, did you want to add to that any?
No, I think you answered it right. You know, as you can see here, aviation has JFK, LaGuardia, TBNT has terminals, bridges, and even under the bridges, you have George Washington Bridge. So this is really the breakdown. Now, one of the things that we did was give the line departments flexibility. So aviation implements a solution. For example, all the electrical assets, they will go live with all the facilities. TBNT is actually going live with, say, George Washington Bridge, Staten Island bridges, stuff like that. So they have the flexibility to go live, whether they want to go departmental wide or org wide, or they want to go individual facilities. We're able to accommodate that.
Okay, great. Do we want to address 2 and 3, or we want to move on to next question? Sorry. Go back up here. There's a lot coming in.
Yeah, we got a lot coming in. So we had answered that one in the chat as well. So maybe let's go ahead and move.
Right.
Move on.
Have you tackled legacy drawing tagging nomenclature against your new naming standards?
Yes. So all the data that goes into the enterprise production platform are in full compliance with the nomenclature and naming standards. And so that's what is helping with the agency-wide reporting. So part of that effort included going back to the field to kind of capture the data with the gaps that the data that is needed versus what they had in the legacy system, most of which was nothing. We actually did focus on regarding the attributes. In order not to boil the ocean, we just go with what is on the nameplates. So there is a reason the manufacturers put that information there. So we're not trying to add attributes that are not within the nameplate. And if that needs to happen, then they need to go through the governance process.
Thank you, Robert. Second part of that question, regarding the nomenclature, what compromises have you made and how have those affected your overall program?
Well, that's what I said. Like most of the time, you know, you're trying to get people to reason that there is a need for that. Sometimes, you know, maintainers don't always need the attributes to do their work. So they may probably push back, say, why do we need all this data? While the rehabilitation designers and all these replacement folks, they need that information. So to come to a place where engineers need an extensive attributes, we'll just say, hey, we're going to keep it to what is on the nameplate. And if going forward there's a need, we'll onboard those. So that was the kind of compromise that we got everyone to agree to move forward.
All right, looks like you answered some of this.
Yes.
Were there any specific tools that you utilize between all jurisdictions, department stakeholders when standardizing all equipment, structures, etc., in your effort to get everyone speaking the same lingo?
Yeah, so what we did was, and I will just quickly share this. I was hoping that I won't be hijacking it. This is the database for the standards. And when you go into this database, for example, if you're seeing my screen, you go here, let's say we pick up, say, heating and ventilation. This is, you can download the standards for that, but you can also see that who voted at what time, because we have to get them, and you can see this is revision 7. And if they go here, they can download the data here, which I'm going to open here shortly for you to see. So here you can see what is an asset, what is a component, what is the attribute, what is the functional system code, where the data is needed. So this work was done, and everyone at the table voted for this. And so if an end user say, hey, I don't know about this, I never voted for this, hey, there was a representative that did. So these were all part of the stuff that was done. And if there was a need for a construction project, that template is here. They could just go there and load it. So this here is what enables everybody to use. And also down the line, there was questions about validation. So because we have data templates, if you click on this and you drag a completed data template in there, it tells you the percentage complete in terms of compliance with all the data requirements. So I would stop there for now. I mean, we could be talking of this for the next 48 hours. So I will just stop there.
Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Next up, I think this might be for the whole team. What are some recommendations for maintaining an up-to-date job plan library where a significant library of job plans already exist? You want to take a stab?
Yeah, I'll start that, and then I'm going to ask Lonnie to jump in on that as well. I mean, I think one of the things in maintaining a job plan library is making sure that the folks writing the job plan actually know what they're writing about. I remember very early in my career as an engineer going onto a plant site and getting lectured by the maintenance guys about the engineer that was in my role prior that had put a 6-inch pipe in a 4-inch wall, and learning very quickly that there was practical considerations that had to be made above and beyond just the design. So working with the folks that are actually doing the work to make sure that what you're putting into the job plan is valid and meaningful to them, writing those job plans to the level of folks that are skilled in the trade is kind of how I term it, and having a feedback loop for that. But Lonnie, I know more recently you've done some things and looked into some things with Maximo Assist, and I think that kind of brings a whole new level of opportunity there in creating that ability to capture that feedback using AI and having that over-the-shoulder coaching and things like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I totally agree. I think the main contributor to a good job plan library is the feedback loop from the technicians performing the job. If the job plan is not relevant, if the job plan is not understandable, they just won't use it, right? So then you have, what good is the job plan to rely on to know that the maintenance was completed properly? So the feedback loop is number one in my book. But in terms of looking into the future with MASS, the Maximo Assist functionality allows multi-layered ways to inform the technician on the job in ways of, fulfilling your library of documentation that is readily available from the mobile device, pictures of the job, videos, tutorials of how to perform the job are readily accessible that way. The ability to get on a FaceTime call. Everybody knows what FaceTime is. Get on some kind of a camera-to-camera conversation with an expert without them having to drive to the job site to help or show them the problem, help diagnose it together in real time. And then all feeds back to the job plan, right? If the individual needed assistance and it was something that wasn't documented, then that's another way to say that's a deficiency in our job plan. We need to include that piece of documentation or that instruction to edify that job plan. So the future of job plans is definitely bright in terms of the ability to do the Maximo Assist. One of the best stories that I've heard along this line is a utility customer who faced what everyone's facing and has been facing for the last 10 years is the corporate knowledge and the skill sets of retired workers going out the door, and trying to impart that knowledge in some way, some form to the new ones coming in. So they don't always have the luxury of, on the job training with, for a year before the guy retires, right? So they started a Leave Your Legacy program, and it was the ability for the last 8 months, 9 months of the person's job, before they retired. They actually asked them to please contribute to the utility's legacy by leaving tips and tricks and points and documentation and help, and in a way that it could be used for generations to come. So all of those tools, put together, and with that constant feedback loop, I think is key to good job plan library.
So at the Port Authority, we haven't quite gotten to a job plan library at the enterprise level, because to do that, then we'll never get this program done. So what we did was to leave each line department to proceed with the job plans that they have, so that at the end of 2027, we can pull all the job plans from all the line departments for a pump. And then they can sit at the table and say, okay, this is the best practice in their opinion. So that goes back to what Lani is saying, where it's a way of also capturing the legacy before most of these folks are retiring. So we get them into the system, and then class by class, we can say, what are your job plans for your pumps? What are your job plans for your generators, aviation, TB&T, ports? Who seems to be the best? Then they can have that conversation. But for now, we're just letting them do what is needed, because for the last 100 years, they've done that by themselves. And that conversation, I think, would have brought in too much complication in the process. It was about scalability and flexibility. Amy, did I answer that right?
Yes, you did. Excellent job.
All right, we have a few more. Thank you all. This one, I think it's addressed to Amy, might be you, Robert, as well. Hi, was there a cost benefit analysis that informed the PA decision to go to MAS 8 during the current implementation? I asked because I know of others who are considering this as well. And then lastly, also, will MAS improve API service level integrations? Will it improve the Maximo spatial configuration? Loaded question, but just wanted to, I know we addressed it a little bit.
I'll take the first one, and then Amy, you can back it up. So I don't know that the MAS, we have a choice here. We are maintaining assets that are critical, and we want to make sure that we have the latest upgrade. And I think the support for 7.6 is going to expire, I think, September 2025. So you want to make sure that you have the latest. And I'm not too sure there is an issue of what is driving that is to make sure that we have systems that are working, that we can meet the compliance requirements of the federal regulatory requirements, to make sure we have the latest and the best working system that is supported. And so that is the main driving force. But as a result of everything else that's going on, we haven't sat down to do a calculation of, is this a cost benefit? Because for us, we need an operational system to start, and that is the key driver. That is supported. Amy, the floor is yours.
I actually got distracted there for just a second, because I'm actually on the client side supporting a go live this week, so it's been a little bit hectic for me. I don't really.
I can jump to the next question, Amy. It's okay.
Well,
Thank you.
I can just add.
Addressed it in the.
I can just add a bit to this, because this is not only about an upgrade, it's also about when you look at how you want to do your asset management, inspection, operation, and maintenance in 5 years' time. Then there's a lot of capabilities that are built into the Maximo application suite that you can leverage. You already have access to all the licenses to try it out. But if you want to enrich the way you're doing asset management today, with enhancing it with the IoT data, with the visual inspection, all these capabilities are in the new version. So, for instance, the client in Denmark I talked about, they started with 7.6, but it was a natural step to move into the application suite to take advantage of the visual inspection capabilities I talked about. So it's not only about just the upgrade, but also where you want to take the asset management to the next step. And I think when you do the math around this, it will be a very positive return on investment for doing the upgrades.
Thanks, Claus. Now I remember the question, and I think I had responded in the chat as well. We are seeing some cost benefit analysis, but I think a lot of people are just accepting the inevitability of the move to mass, and that they need to do that. And so it's less about the cost is kind of considered just something that's going to have to be taken on. The benefit is more important, and a lot of the discussion has been around how far do they want to take that move? Is it a technical upgrade of just moving from Maximo 7.6 into manage and kind of keeping the status quo for a little bit? How advanced do they want to get, and bringing in some of the additional suite products and kind of starting to roadmap that journey? A lot of people, I think, are discovering that what they've had in 7.6 for a long, long time maybe isn't the foundation they're looking for to be able to move into health and predict and visual inspection and other things like that. So they're taking it as an opportunity to assess their current processes and data and really make improvements there. And then, of course, there's all the underlying architecture changes and changes to integrations and hosting models and licensing costs and things like that. So it's a big conversation that goes well beyond any sort of just cost benefit analysis, and really understanding what does that roadmap need to look like.
Thank you, Amy. I understand we're about 7 minutes over. I'd like to, if we could cover like 1 to 2 more questions. There's a really good one here that I wanted to address, and then we can wrap up. I think this is for everybody. Klaus, you might want to address this. It would appear that this is well suited to, I think this was on your portion, Klaus, well suited to be applied to waterway dams, but has anyone used or tested it for that application yet?
So yeah, so what is that for? Underwater images, or is it for the on overwater, because we have done it on concrete structures above the sea level, but are we talking about underwater here?
Yes, I believe so. Waterway dams. So I'm not sure that's water.
So they're navigable canals and recreational canals, so they might have an open top, but they're canal structures that are underground carrying.
Okay,
boats and barges
so we are able to apply the AI on underwater pictures. The challenge is often how do you capture the pictures? We are not doing the equipment that is needed to take the pictures underwater. But if you are already working with someone and you have the pictures, we can for sure apply AI to the pictures and discuss with you which kind of defects it is that we need to look after and so on. So just reach out if you want to exploit that use case. But we don't have the equipment that can capture the data.
Yeah, this would be done. This would be for above water portions of dam structures. We also have underwater drones for the below waterline portions. So thank you. Yes, we clarified. Okay. One last question as we're 9 minutes over. Visuals are important. I guess the question is, would it be best to put assets at the organizational level and call that an organization that have multiple sites, and each site has access to all assets, some with views, some with work orders, PMs, inspection, and some with updates? I think we missed part of that question. Looks like we've got a half a question. I think we'll move on from that. Let me just get the last slide here. Okay, well, I did say early in the presentation, I'm kind of a baseball guy, and so I'll say thank you all for, I think you hit it out of the park. You know, we really were looking for your experiences and, you know, describing, you know, as a framework for everyone to kind of understand what your situation is, what your environment is, and how you reacted, and to frame something up for people to ask. So thank you, Robert. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Lonnie. And thank you, Klaus. And thank you, Olu Odulate was not able to join. Thomas Knowles from IBM as well. They all helped contribute to this. This is our second sector-specific mass event. In the last few months, we've got a lot of really good response. As I mentioned at the start of the call, we had over 200 people registered for this across 75 public infrastructure agencies, and so it's a great community. And we want to thank you, for everyone who's involved in this. Your questions are important to the success of this meeting. Just want to say thank you to all, and until the next time, over and out. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you,
Bill.
everyone.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks everyone for being here. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.